Hey friends, just a quick reminder before we get into today's episode, come join us over on our Patreon. That's where we release bonus episodes every other week, and we've already got over 20 episodes from 2023 that you can download and binge right now for as little as $3 a month. We've covered so many good books there: Haunting Adeline, Chateau, Gothicana, and so many more. That's also where we'll cover any books in a series we continue, so Serpent and Dove, High Mountain Court, Serpent and the Wings of Night. You can continue those series with us on Patreon right now. Finally, as a patron, we let you know what we're going to read every month, so you can read along with us if that's your jam. Anyway, that's all from me. On to today's episode.
Also, I meant to say this last night because it was in my notes. And this is like, I just had to say it to you. I don't think it could be the cold open, I guess. I don't know. But in the scene in the tent, literally where we started part 2.
Yeah.
And he's wearing his loincloth and he takes his loincloth off. She looks at him and his pubes are straight. Yeah. They're straight. Like a wolf's belt. Like, I can't picture that. And I had to say that because I was looking at my notes for today and I forgot that those notes were yesterday, and I was just like, ew.
Ew.
Welcome to Your Safe Space, the podcast your partner, friends, parents, whoever thinks is dirty. Don't have time to read books? Want to understand the jokes and the TikToks? We got you, fam. We're the Spice Traders, and we deal in spicy books. I'm Katie, and I need it to make sense.
I'm Liz, and I'm hypercritical. As always, we start every episode with 3 things. The first is a generic trigger warning. You can find specific triggers for this book in our show notes, so please check those out. Also, we do use foul language and talk a lot about sex. If you have sensitivity to any of this, please give this episode a skip.
Secondly, we talk about books. The whole book, nothing but the book, so help me goddess. If you plan to read this book and don't want something spoiled right now, don't listen to this episode.
Lastly, we acknowledge that a good book can hit you at the wrong time. The views expressed in our discussion are our opinion, and we absolutely don't want to diminish the work and the talent of the authors in our community. That said, we have some notes.
What are we talking about today, Katie?
Well, we're still on The Winter King by C.L. Wilson. This is part 3. I promise we're almost done. This is part 3 of 4. And we will be covering chapters 16 through 21 today. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
When we last left off, Cam had just basically had a miscarriage. And she's recovering, right? So while she's recovering, she sees very little of her husband, Winter. She thinks that this is going to be rough already. She sees so little of him that she thinks he might be stepping out with Reka. And so she follows him and finds that he spends a lot of time in the atrium, the forbidden zone, if you will remember, sometimes even all night. One night after she's followed him and she's fallen asleep, kind of like waiting for him to come out, he finds her and asks if she's satisfied her curiosity enough as he carries her back to her room.
I don't know anything.
She asks what he's doing in the atrium, and he tells her nothing that concerns her and makes her swear not to enter or send someone on her behalf to enter. She begrudgingly promises not to enter the atrium and resigns herself to another celibate night as he leaves her alone in her bed.
It's the miscommunication trope at its finest. Like, we do find out what's in the atrium. It's stupid that he made it so wrapped in mystery. And it's also stupid that she's not just like, hey, it bothers me because I think you're cheating on me. And I would like you to sleep with me. Instead, like, they just don't talk.
Yeah, they just don't. They don't communicate very well.
He's like, it's forbidden. And she's like, okay.
This is also the like prime example of like how they just don't know how to talk to each other outside of having sex.
Yeah. And that continues for most. I mean, this part kind of changes a little bit near the end, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So when Winter goes back to his own bedroom, he admits that the way he feels about Cam has too much power over him, and he beats off to the thought of her.
Just go back in her room. Okay.
You're literally, okay, it's fine. Right. So after that, Winter spends even less time with Cam, not even showing his face at dinner. This causes the court to gossip that Cam has fallen out of favor, which galls Cam to no end, so she starts finding excuses to be away from the palace too. Specifically, she and Christy ride all over the place. Cam tries to befriend the Winterfolk without much luck, and she's talking to Christy about that, and Christy's like, well, you could try dressing like them and maybe you would have more luck. He says, quote, I'm just saying if you dress and act like a foreigner, you shouldn't be surprised that they treat you like one. Fair point.
Yeah, it's valid. And she's been stubbornly holding on to her clothing, which, to be clear, are like bright jewel tones, and everyone else wears like grays and whites and creams.
Yeah.
And like they already know that you're different. They already know that you're from the place that they all hate. It's like it's like going to a foreign country that hates America and just wearing all American flags.
Yeah. Wow. What? That's in such poor taste.
I know. I'm sorry.
So she takes this advice, and when she does, Winter notices immediately. From his perspective, rather than make her blend in more, it sets off her coloring against the pale wash of his people. So she's like dark-haired and mysterious against all of these milk toasty blonde people.
Which is fine, but it did confuse me a little bit because Winter is tan. Well, I think he's just not white. But like, is everyone else white? And he's just not white? There's no other non-white people? It's just these two.
It's just, which, like, okay. This is awkward.
It's super awkward.
Yeah, no, that's honestly a fair point, and I kind of forgot that he was described as a person of color because, like, it, especially like toward the back half of this book, it definitely like skews toward like Scandinavia adjacent,
yes,
like maybe this happens in Norway kind of thing.
Very much. And so whenever we see his tan skin, I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh,
what?
You're the color of browned butter. I get that.
I get that. But then you have white silver hair.
Nobody else looks like you.
No.
So she does this, right? And he's like, man, she's attractive. But the 6-week deadline where she's supposed to heal and he's not supposed to fuck her passes. But Winter doesn't go to Cam. He's desperately trying to keep his distance. But because he's not getting laid, he's surly and literally icy in meetings with his people. And so Valak's finally like, will you please get laid already and like do us all a favor?
I did think this conversation was so funny because Valak says that and he's like, I thought you didn't trust her. And Valak's like, I don't, but like you're a pain in the ass. And that's what she's here for, right? Like,
go fuck her and put a baby in her. Like,
that's why we're here. Like, what are you doing?
What is the problem? So Galicia is also in this conversation and adds that, quote, truth be told, she was probably healthy enough within a week of the poisoning, but stupid me, I thought you might use the time to get to know your wife, not avoid her like the plague.
I love Galicia.
She's my favorite character.
She's amazing. Because, like, yeah, what's wrong with you?
Truly. And she goes on to add that the court has noticed Winter's shunning of Cam, and it has made her life a misery. So, like, good job, buddy. What were you intending to do?
Right. And, like, also, what did you think was going to happen? You know they're all watching you. They're certainly watching her. So for you to be snubbing her for now 2 months, it's a problem.
Galicia and Valak are like, brother, like, stop. You're being ridiculous. And also, you're a pain in the ass and a jerk. So, like, can we get past this? And Winter's like, I have more important things to do. I need to get these preparations for an invasion sorted. And, like, after that's done, I'll fix things with Cam. And so his intention in this is to visit the newly refurbished towers to make sure they're satisfactory. But that's going to take, like, weeks. And Valak and Galicia are like, good plan.
It's so stupid. It's supposed to taking, like, I don't know, 20 minutes to fix this. You're going to put it off for more weeks.
Truly. So just before Winter leaves this meeting, Galicia tells him to give Cam a chance because she's seen no sign of treachery in her. Winter ruminates to himself that whether he's enchanted or not, when he returns from inspecting the towers, his separation from his wife will end.
Okay.
Great.
Cool.
Before he sets off, Reika shows up and is like, oh, my king, will you see me as far as my country house because my dad is dying? And this is where, like, Valak and Reika are related, and Valak just doesn't give a fuck about this guy.
No, who would be his uncle? And like you're close to your cousins but don't give a shit about their parent? Like, okay, are you related or not? Why are we pretending?
Yeah, no, exactly. So Winter's like, I know this is a bad idea, but I can't just like say no. So let me just go run and leave a note for Cam, and maybe that will make it okay. Which of course it doesn't, because the whole court sees Reika leave with Winter, and Cam never gets this fucking note, and I don't know what happened to it.
Okay, I wanted to ask if I had missed something because we don't go back to it. Like he says like, did you get my note later? And she says, what note? And like we just never go back to it. I think Bella moved it, hid it, got rid of it, but I don't know why she would.
Yeah, I have to assume that Bella is like, because when Cam gets back to her room, Bella is like stoking the fire. So like maybe it's supposed to be implied that Bella like burned the note. But
yeah, but I wish we got confirmation of that when Bella's treachery is revealed later.
I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah, because it's unclear. Like it could have come out. It could have come out later. Like why didn't Bella just admit that as part of her like plot of saying like, oh, I wanted to start a fight, whatever.
Right, exactly. So, anyway. So Cam comes back to her room and she learns that Reika left with Winter from Bella. And this news makes her eat dinner in her room. She's like angry and hurt, and her emotions are getting the best of her to the point where she's like, I have to like go underground. Otherwise the storm that I'm creating is going to kill people. So she goes down to the cellars to dissipate the storm that the mood has conjured. She wallows to herself, quote, what is wrong with her that no one wanted her? She was aware of her shortcomings, her short temper, the violent nature of her weather gift, her need to rebel against authority, but despite those drawbacks, she had always tried to live a good life, be a good person, a person Roland Solgius would have been proud to call a friend, honorable, loyal, trustworthy, brave. Maybe she was the abomination her father had called her. Maybe everyone else could see the evil in her, and that's why they reviled her.
This made me so sad.
I know. It's very sad, but I find even in this a little bit of juvenility, because she's like, a person Roland Soldius would have been proud to call a friend. Like at this point, like Roland is a like bedtime story almost. Like,
ugh, I know. Every time she references him, I'm like, you're a 5-year-old.
Yeah. But it is really sad, and I don't know. This scratched the damsel in distress like thing for me.
Yeah, it did for me too.
So after she's done crying, she resolves that she's done being docile and trying to play nice, and she goes to break into the atrium.
I love her like, well, if you're not gonna keep your vows, then I'm not going to either.
I love that too, because she's like, okay, fine. You can break your promise. I'll break all of mine. We don't have to be friends. That's cool.
Which I love that.
So once she's inside, rather than like state secrets or something, she finds a whole bunch of ice sculptures, like an entire forest of ice sculptures with like little vignettes of like a family here and there. And Cam's like, dude, what in the actual fuck? This is not at all what I expected to find here. And so she just starts wandering around, and she begins to realize that the people, the vignettes that she sees, are all the same people. And she comes to realize that it's Winter and his family.
And I forgot until like, not even in this part, but later, but that this is where the prologue starts. Like we see Winter and his brother in here making ice sculptures.
Yeah. I did like that callback.
And then I forgot that was a hobby they had. I did too.
So after that first time, she goes back like a lot over the 2 weeks that Winter is gone. Cam finds errands for Christy to do, so he doesn't get suspicious of where she spends her time either. And she has all but removed herself from court.
She's like obsessive.
She is. She like, I think if she could sleep in that place, she would.
Yeah, she would. And that obsession was a little bit strange to me, like just how intensive it was. Like she would go to sleep just waiting until she could wake up and go back, which doesn't matter. But I was like, this is a lot.
She kind of speaks to that later, and I don't think it's giving anything away now to say that like the thing that she finds in this room that I think she can't help herself but go back to is like a depiction of a loving family. And I think she's like trying to convince herself that she could be a part of that family, like in a pretend world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
So
is just
sad.
very sad.
Because, like, this isn't spoiling anything either, it'll come up, but she, like, brings, like, she packs a lunch to have with the pretend ice family.
Yeah, she like has a picnic with the ice sculpture family.
Which, like, oh, girl.
I know. I know. She's like, I'd rather be with these ice sculptures than literally any of the real humans around me.
Which, oh man, that's rough.
It's dark in here. So when Winter returns, his men tell him that 3 falcons were seen around the palace, but they haven't sourced who they made contact with. And the insinuation here is that Wintercraig men don't use falcons because that one dude named Falcon fucked a lot of shit up. So it must be from traitors.
Obviously. So stupid.
So Winter's like, cool, where's my wife? And his men are like, well, you said to watch but not intervene. And she's in the atrium. And he's like, what?
The one place I told her not to go.
How could you? He goes beast mode. And
He goes
I mean,
full
like,
beast mode.
Beauty and the Beast mode.
Yeah.
So he goes to the atrium in a fury and accuses Cam of spying for her brother. He accuses her of breaking her oath and that he should have known better since she comes from a long line of liars. This causes Cam's anger to fire, and she starts summoning a storm outside. She accuses him of being a ruthless murderer, all because Elka preferred Falcon to him, and after being married to him, she can't blame her.
Damn.
He's like, I cared for you just fine. And she's like, oh, let me count the ways. Quote, to what care exactly do you refer? You mean the way you ignore me for weeks on end? That care? Or the way that you have made it clear to every member of your court that I am to be ostracized and treated as a source of pathetic amusement?
I mean, yeah.
Girl. I do like the way that she fights for herself in this scene.
I do too. Like, this is one of the things that I really like about this book, where we get such a damsel in distress, but she's not weak by any means. Like, she kind of
100%.
reminds me of Meg from Hercules, and that I'm a damsel, I'm in distress, get out of my way.
Yes. I love that comparison. Especially the longer that she's away from her father, she really doesn't take any shit.
Yes, which I adore.
Yeah. So she says all this stuff, but Winter doesn't take ownership of the way that he's treated her and gets back to her not being allowed in the atrium. Cam is like, oh yeah, because of all the state secrets that are hidden here? Cool. He's like, look, you betrayed my trust. You promised not to come in here. And she's like, yeah, and you promised not to whore around with Reka, and yet here we are. And he's like, I left you a note. And she's like, what note, dude? I didn't get a fucking note.
I didn't get a fucking note. And like I said before, I'm a little annoyed that doesn't come back clearly. Like, is that note just still sitting on her dresser and she's just stupid? Or was it discarded? I mean, it must have been discarded.
Right. We never explicitly find out, and it's so annoying because it is such a big thing. But I feel like the note kind of misses the point because, like, note or not, his entire court saw him leave with her.
Exactly. And he writes this note, and we do, like, when he writes it, we get what the note says. And it's just like, your faithful husband or something. And he goes through the thought process of, should I mention Reka? Nah, I'm not going to do that. But, like, she'll know what I mean. Like, what?
Right. Okay. Like, if you have to ask, maybe you should be a little bit more explicit, dude.
Exactly.
So the more they argue, the more Cam's weather gifts get out of control, and eventually lightning strikes and breaks through the glass ceiling, causing Winter to dive for Cam to protect her. She immediately tells him to get off of her, not to pretend to care about her safety. She accuses him of being just like her father, only worse because at least her father never hid his contempt for her. She struggles and bonks her head against his somehow, and he tries to like look at it to make sure she's not bleeding, and she's like, I'm fine, a little bruise on my head won't make me unable to bear children, but you not fucking me will, so like I don't know what your intention is there.
Which I did love that, but then I don't love what happens next.
Yeah, because this turns into sex somehow.
That's where, like, you use the word their animal magnetism. I'm like, but I'm not convinced.
Right, but it's I use animal magnetism because like they are described as having like physical reactions to each other, but it's not like Cam does not want to have sex, like,
no,
at the start of this interaction because she's mad. But then
Yeah.
eventually, like, Winter like kisses her neck enough, I guess, to like do that, and like this whole time he's like, oh, are you just mad because I didn't have sex with you? And I'm like, that is wildly and willfully missing the point.
Yeah, I really hated that, and I wasn't able to enjoy the scene, which is a pretty, like, closed-door scene anyway, but I hated it. So I was like, you're just manipulating her.
It really did feel manipulative. That's a really good way to put it. And I didn't even put that label on it until just now. But, like, he never apologizes for, like, his actions or doing those things. Like, and he never, like, allows Cam to, like, be angry and, like, say her piece about it, really.
No,
It just
he doesn't.
felt like an effective silencing of, like, her perspective.
Yeah, he never acknowledges, like, okay, I see how that looked to the court. I see how that looked to you. I realize that me not talking to you has created all these problems. Like, he doesn't own up to anything he's done at all, ever.
No.
He's just like, oh, you want to have sex? Meh.
We can have sex. He's like, all you had to do was ask. And I'm like,
Bitch, no.
is that all she had to do? Because I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true at all.
So they have sex. And then afterward, they, like, snuggle in the atrium, I guess. And so he asks her again why she came there. And she tells him it's because she thought he broke his oath. And so she saw no reason to keep hers. And he tells her, quote, I don't break my oaths. At least until this year is up, the only woman to share my bed will be you and you alone, end quote. And he tells us internally that the only reason he doesn't reassure her more about Reka is because he likes the hint of jealousy. And again, that feels incredibly manipulative to me.
Yeah, because you're just hurting her because you kind of like it. Gross.
Yeah,
Gross.
It's super gross. And I feel like this whole thing, like, it just boiling all of these emotions and, like, perspectives down to a lack or a presence of sex is extremely diminutive, right? Or
It
reductive,
is.
I guess is the right word.
Yes.
Because it just
Very
turns
much.
like Cam into this person that can just be supposedly easily assuaged, and, like, that's the only thing that she needs. And in reality, what she wants is companionship and acceptance, and, like, I still don't think that that's actually resolved in this book.
No, not as far as I've read. I don't see that at all. Like, you get a little bit closer, I guess, but they just so willfully don't talk to each other that we don't actually get that.
Yeah. So that felt a little gross.
Mm-hmm.
So Winter goes on to ask her why she kept coming once she knew what was in there. And this is the part where she says that she was looking for the same thing that Winter was when he built it, which is love. She admits that she's never had that or really known what it was like to be a part of a family. And that's why I think she came back so often, because she was pretending what it would be like to feel that.
Yeah. Oh. It reminds me of Harry when he finds the Mirror of Erised and he just goes there every night.
Yeah, exactly that. Also, way to pull that name out of your ass. I would have been like, that one mirror that shows
I don't know
you
where
what
that
you want.
I don't know where that came from. It just popped in my head and I was like, yeah, I got
Hey.
this shit. Hey.
So Winter goes on to say that he made this place for his brother and that they both actually used to carve ice sculptures, as we know from the prologue. But specifically, he wanted his brothers to remember their parents, which is why he carved so many different, like, scenes with the four of them. Cam then asks him to tell her about his family, and he does. As they spend the day like that, Winter realizes that his brother Garrick likely would have liked Cam very, very much.
Oh.
The next day, Winter feels energized because he got his rocks off.
Gross.
He also feels emboldened to do right by his wife, so he goes to where he knows she'll be lunching with the rest of the ladies at court. He observes their interaction for a moment before entering and can tell that Cam is being isolated by much of the court. He tells us, quote, Cam's lovely expressive face was drawn in a blank mask, all her bright vitality and passion tamped down and hidden away, leaving a lifeless wooden caricature of Wynn's wild summer rose. Yeah, dude, you did that.
Right. Like, and he still doesn't own it. Even in this inner monologue, he doesn't own any of that.
Right. He does come close to it at the end of it. So he says, well, he barges into the room and invites her to go riding with him, surprising everyone in the room, including Cam. And internally, he resolves that, quote, his queen, who had been an outcast in her own home all her life, would not be an outcast in his, and that his disgraceful lack of care for her ended today. So
That's
he
true.
at least acknowledges it internally, but he never even apologizes to Cam for it.
No, which would have gone a long way. At least he does acknowledge it a little bit, but I wish he acknowledged it to her.
Yeah. So they go riding alone, despite Valak's objections. They find the countryside covered in snow from their storm, from when they were fighting and having sex.
Gross.
And it causes Cam to ask about avalanches, and Winter tells her that his people manage them even without his weather gifts, blah, blah. It's just a fact of life. So they end up stopping in a pub in a town that Cam knows despises her. But Winter makes a show of being generous and enjoying Cam's company, and she realizes as they leave that he's doing this on purpose.
To show them, like, hey, I like her. You should too.
Exactly. Like, this is my queen and is your queen too.
Which, cool. But that would have been better if you had done that 3 months ago.
Truly. So when they're done eating, instead of heading back to the palace, they keep heading away from it because Winter wants to show Cam something. And they end up at a pond with a frozen waterfall. Cam recognizes the place from Winter's sculpture garden and is exceedingly touched that he brought her there. We learn that it's near a hunting lodge that his family used when they were alive. Winter proceeds to teach Cam how to ice skate so that she can see the cave behind the waterfall for herself. And this is an incredibly long scene that I wish I didn't read because it's just boring.
It's so long. It's like 20 pages of ice skating.
Well, because we're literally walked through like Winter teaching somebody who has never ice skated before in her life how to be on skates and then use them. And I'm just like, I want to die. This is awful.
It was horrible. This is such a part that I was like, this book doesn't need to be this long.
Yeah, a lot of editing could have really helped this scene.
It's not even that endearing. Like, it is for the first page, and then I'm just like, okay, I got it. Let's go.
Yeah. So during this exchange, Cam asks about Elka and whether Winter wishes that Cam was more like Elka, and Winter vehemently says no. It's here that he also finally tells Cam that he doesn't see Reika in a romantic light at all and never has, that she's just a friend. He also tells Cam that she has always been much more than a friend ever since the first time that he saw her dressed up as a maid. He admits that Cam's father thought that he was giving him the daughter that Winter wanted the least, but in reality, he was giving him the daughter that he wanted the most.
Oh, which, like, she doesn't fully believe him, but we know that's true because that was his inner monologue, so I liked that he said it.
I like that he said it too. And that, I guess, is the closest thing we're ever going to get to an apology from him. But I was glad that he at least admitted that, like, hey, I do actually like you.
Yeah, and I liked you from the start.
Yeah. So when Cam finally feels confident enough, she goes over to the cave on her own, and Winter tells her that this is the cave that his father hid, quote, dragon treasure inside for him to find, and that he did the same for his brother Garrick when Garrick was young. It's here that Cam realizes that Winter would make a very good father because he would bring his children happiness, belonging, security, and the knowledge that both their parents loved and wanted them. And she thanks Winter for bringing her there and sharing that with her.
Oh.
So this is kind of weird because this is really the first time that they spend any time together talking that doesn't involve sex. And it's weird for Cam in particular because she realizes that Winter knows so little about her, but he's probably the one who knows her the best in the world. And she's like, wow, how did I get here?
That was such a dark, like, it's not a dark realization for her, but to me, I was like, girl.
Yeah.
What?
You got to get some friends, man.
You gotta get some friends.
Christy doesn't count because he's your servant, man. Like, nobody that, like,
Exactly. Hopefully your husband will keep learning about you, but oh.
So, like I said, she realizes that Winter is actually a good man. Spoilers. And it's the first time that she can envision a life together with him, or a future that she believes in. On the way back, though, the bliss is kind of shattered a little bit because they have a frustrating conversation about the war. Cam still believes that her brother Falcon is good, and obviously Winter has very different opinions about this. He tells her about the village the Falcon used as a distraction for his escape. And Cam says that that must be a lie.
Her blind faith is just, ugh.
I hate it so much. And I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's the thing that, like, when you're presented with information that contradicts your beliefs, you just dig your heels in. But I feel like she already has a question about Falcon's behavior. And so it just takes her a little bit too long for me to be like, actually, yeah, that tracks.
Exactly. Yeah. It takes too long.
So Winter tells her that she's a fool if she doesn't believe that that's what happens, and tells her that if Falcon ever steps foot in Wintercraig again, that Winter will personally kill him and anybody else who offered Falcon aid. And yes, that was kind of a threat.
Yep. Sure was.
Yep.
Sure was.
This tense discussion is interrupted, though, when they come upon a village that's been buried under an avalanche. They immediately decide to help, even though Winter really doesn't want Camson to help at all and to go as far away from the place as possible. But Cam's like, no, these are my people too. Let me help. So they do. So as they approach, they see a lot of people trying to like physically dig people out of their homes. But Cam is like, there's got to be a better way. So she stands on the roof of a house and uses her weather gifts to melt the snow on the roof of the house, which is like super efficient. But she doesn't have to summon a storm to do this. She just like heats up her body and like melts the snow around her.
And it's super effective.
Yeah, but like, how does magic work then?
I don't know. And I don't think she knows.
No, I don't think anybody knows.
No one knows.
So she does this several times and is able to expedite the search and rescue operation and earn the respect of the townspeople with whom she worked. We find out that only 21 of the 200 villagers were lost in the avalanche and that it was the most successful avalanche rescue in Wintercraig history, thanks to Cam.
Nice.
When they get back to the palace, both Winter and Cam are beat. Winter tucks Cam into bed and turns to leave, but she reaches for him and asks him to stay for the first time. So he does. As Winter holds her close, he admits to himself that of the people he loves, only Cam makes the Ice Heart retreat. He admits to himself that he fought the feeling for so long because he's terrified that Cam will betray him just as Elka did. But if that were to happen, it would destroy him this time. This is also when he tells us that his wolf spirit recognizes Cam as his mate, and that when wolf spirits mate, I guess, they mate for life.
But God forbid he tells her he likes her.
Girl, right? Like, come on.
Like, we get all of this and he just doesn't tell her and she won't tell him, and it's infuriating.
Yeah, despite the fact that he has said over and over again that he doesn't think that she's like capable of telling a lie convincingly or being a traitor. So like, if you're worried about her helping her brother, you just have to keep her physically away from her brother.
Exactly.
Anyway, in the morning, they're disturbed by Bella, who is terrified and retreats until Winter leaves. But he's not gone for long. I think he just gets like clothes or something, because he joins Cam for tea shortly thereafter. It's the same tea that she has every morning that we've been given to suspect that Bella can't brew correctly because it's super bitter. But as soon as Winter tastes it, he becomes irate, channeling the full force of the Ice Heart because he tastes it for what it is, black tansy, which we learn is also an herb that acts essentially like Plan B.
Yep.
Winter calls Cam deceitful and a traitor and like is almost close to killing her, but it becomes like increasingly clear that she has no idea what's going on. And they quickly surmise that Bella has been the one dosing Cam without her knowledge.
Which is why the tea has always been so bitter.
Right. But this is also one of those examples of like, these people are just 0 to 100 all the time. There's no in between.
He like leaps up, freezes the teacup, it shatters, and he like literally is just about to murder her. And she's like,
his eyes go white, like he just becomes rigid.
Yeah, and she's like, I can't even defend myself because I don't know why you're mad. All I did was offer you some of my tea.
Yeah.
What? Also, like, this would be giving them way too much credit. But if she was taking this, wouldn't she like avoid offering him the tea because she knows he would identify it?
Well, yeah, that's a dead giveaway for me, right?
Yeah. But she hands it to him. She's like, here you go. Let's share. This is cute.
Have
And then
some of
he
this shitty
loses
tea
it.
that my lady's maid can't brew for shit.
Right.
Stupid. This was such a jarring scene too, because when I first read it, it almost felt like he had been shot, because the reaction was so like swift and like seemingly out of nowhere. Like I the first time I read it, I didn't even clock that he tried the tea.
I clocked they tried the tea, but I thought there was like straight up poison in it, and he was going to think it was like an assassination attempt, not where it went.
Yeah. It was very strange, very jarring.
It was very jarring.
So anyway, they jail Bella and question her for all she knows. It comes out that she was sent by Cam's father to ensure that Cam would not bear a child and eventually die, which seems like the opposite of what he would want, because Winter would just come back and take a daughter that Verdon actually likes.
Right, because like, yeah, he doesn't want, I mean, it's just like pure hatred of Cam. But I had that question too, because yeah, you just want Cam dead, but you love your other children. I thought.
Well, and it's not that Bella was trying to... It's not like there were other plots that we ever find out about that were geared toward killing Winter. It was just about preventing her from getting pregnant.
Exactly.
Specifically so she would die.
Specifically so she would be murdered, because they all think that that's what the like Mercy of the Mountains is.
Right.
Which turns out that's not what it is anyway. So...
Yeah, I just didn't... I didn't understand the motivations there.
Me either. Not at all. It seemed really like just wedged in there.
Yeah, wedged is a good way to put it. So it becomes clear that Bella has been using falcons to communicate with Verdon and or his associates on this plot. And Cam is struck that she didn't know that and realizes that Winter suspected her of being the spy.
No shit, girl.
No shit. The fact that she's just like, you thought I was a spy? I'm like, girl.
Like, of course he did. What?
So Winter and Cam leave the rest of the questioning to the professionals, and Winter seems to be convinced of Cam's innocence. With Valak alone, with his like inner circle, Winter voices this position, though Valak is still all kinds of suspicious. This is when it comes out that the day that Cam bled, when she met Christy, she had a miscarriage. Probably due to the black tansy and maybe the kick, but unclear still.
Because she was still double poisoned and kicked, so it's just a little confusing.
It's like the definition of kicking her when she's down.
Yeah. Completely unnecessary.
This is what I'm talking about with like the damsel in distress. Damsel in distress is so fucking hard in this book. It just feels like a lot.
It's over and over. Like, no one needs to poison the girl twice and physically kick her.
Right.
In one scene.
My father hates me. He beats me. I think my husband's going to kill me. And then my wounds are infected on the journey here. And then I know my husband's going to kill me because I don't give him a child. And then I'm here and my maid is poisoning me. And then the townspeople are poisoning me. And then I got kicked in the stomach. Like, it just, there's so much.
There's so much over and over and over and over again. Kick her when she's down.
Like, kick her when she's down.
It's horrible.
Yeah. And look, most of it I was here for, I'm not going to lie. But
no, I do love a good damsel in distress, but it's sort of like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, looked at with a critical eye, you're just like, excuse me?
Yes.
Anyway, so ultimately Winter tells Valak to back off and to try to get along with Cam because she is the only wife he'll ever have.
Oh.
So then it's 3 days later and they put Bella out on the glacier to die. As Bella faces her fate, she warns Cam that she is but one of many, but is literally the only one who shows up in this book, so I don't know what the fuck she's talking about.
I didn't know what she was talking about either. That didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, like it feels like a pretty straightforward threat, and that makes sense, but make me believe it a little bit more, because we get to the end of this book and it's like Bella never happened.
Exactly.
So as Cam and Winter head back to the palace, he tells her that Tildy had nothing to do with what Bella did, which is a huge relief to Cam because she had suspected that maybe Tildy and Bella might have been in cahoots. But that's not the case.
Mm-mm.
And then we get a whole last month of time passing. Woo!
Oh, thank God. It was such a relief.
During this time, Cam feels happy for the first time probably in her life, and even Valak is trying to be sociable. Winter and Cam are nearly inseparable, and she almost admits to herself that she loves him, but quickly remembers that she is in a political marriage and she's got a baby to birth. And then that makes her consider the possibility that Winter will abandon her once he has his heir, and that really crushes her mood. Back to Winter, and he gets a report of a garm spotted by a shepherd in a nearby village. Winter takes it as a sign that the ice minions are gathering to welcome the return of their king and god. Okay, so are they gathering, or do they just not exist when the ice heart isn't in a body?
I don't know. And then with what happens next, where it's like they're being used or summoned, I'm like, are they? By who?
Right. I was like, well, clearly they're being drawn to the ice heart, right?
Yeah.
Guys?
But like, where did guys, right? Right, guys? Right? It was very confusing to me. These next two scenes were chaos.
These next two scenes don't need to be here.
Nope, not at all.
So the first one is that we see Cam and Christy climbing a fucking tree in the middle of nowhere to get a view of literally nothing. And they hear a screech, and Christy's like, oh God, it's the Garm. Don't make a sound. We gotta go. And then they flee back to the castle, and that's it.
It's just there to again make the damsel be in distress. She didn't need to be out there at all. She didn't need to be there.
We didn't need to see this.
It doesn't change anything that happens next, except that it gives Winter more to worry about because she was there, but now she's fine.
Right.
Also, what I think is interesting is like we see her. No, never mind. I'm thinking about her later with the garments, but like. Because Christy's like, you have to run. I'll protect you. And like, so she gets down and they leave. But I felt like Christy stopped existing until they were safe.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I was like, did you abandon him? Or like, is he right behind you? He's there. He's there the whole time.
He's just really stealthy.
Yeah.
So they're like fleeing back to the palace. And I should mention that they hear 3 long blasts of a horn that signals that the king has called for a great hunt. And the great hunt is specifically to get rid of the Garm. So during this great hunt, Cam, of course, has to stay behind. Winter tells her it's because she will be a distraction to him if she attends. It's incredibly dangerous, and even though Galacia will go, because she's got the ice spears, she is trained to hunt the Garm. Winter makes Cam promise to stay at the palace, and she does. I wonder how long that'll last.
4 seconds, because she's a dumb dummy.
Yeah, I mean, for somebody who keeping promises and being like an oath, like non-breaker, is kind of a big theme in this book. And for somebody who sees herself as somebody who keeps her word, she doesn't very often.
Nope, not at all. Not at all.
So Winter and the hunting party depart, and after 4 days, Cam is restless. With Lady Mel, she learns that the great hunt usually lasts for a couple of weeks. And Lady Mel goes on to tell her that only single women ever ride with the hunt, since men fiercely protect their wives. Okay.
Okay.
She also says, though kings have died in the great hunt before, it's unlikely Winter will fall to the Garm because of the ice heart. To which I ask, okay, so why are there great hunts in the past? Is it only when there's an ice heart? If so, how many people have drunk the ice heart that aren't the king, right?
I had that question too, like, because it sounds like, okay, so she says what, there's been 3 or 5, you just said it, but there's been a few in her lifetime. But the last one was when the ice giants came when Winter was like 16, so he didn't have the ice heart. So who had the ice heart? Or are they just around always and attracted to the ice heart?
Well, and if the ice heart is slowly turning you into the master of these beings, why can't, like, at what point can you command them?
Exactly. Like, if they're your minions, why are they out to kill you and everything else?
Right.
It felt very, here's this problem and I want to make it make sense, but like, that doesn't really tie together when the Garm could just be their own threat. It's just,
yeah, it was very hand wavy.
And it feels like the plot equivalent of the incest spaghetti. Like, we're gonna weave all these things together, but they don't need to be connected.
Yes, very that. Very that. So back to Winter, who's tracking the Garm with his men, but they haven't found them yet. They get a missive from the palace that suggests the Garm didn't come here on their own. Rather, someone lured them there. And I just feel like this is a great example of like scenes that I don't need to see, because there's like a lot of detail in this scene about how they're tracking them and they're moving back and forth. And I'm like, I don't care.
No, I don't care. Any of that. None of it matters.
Yeah. No. So back with Cam, she's received a note. This note tells her that the Great Hunt is an ambush to kill the king, and that she should meet this person at some place called the Old Mill if she wants to help. Where's the Old Mill? I couldn't fucking tell you.
I couldn't tell you.
Cam thinks this note is from Christy for some reason. But when she goes to meet the person at this Old Mill place, she finds Reika instead. She's immediately on edge because it's Reika, but Reika somehow convinces her that she's actually just concerned about the king. And she's even about to leave Cam behind, but ultimately Cam's like, no, I'll go with you.
Reika just played her like a fucking fiddle. Like, oh, fine, I'll just go without you. It was so easy. And like, why would you go without your guards? But also, the other thing I don't understand is it's been established previously that Cam is always followed by guards. They always know where she is. But this note says, like, meet me by the place we went last week. And she's like, how? No one else would possibly know about that because only Christy knows. Everyone fucking knows because you're being watched all the time. Nothing is secret.
Right. But at this point, she knows that.
I know.
Like or she's at least told us that she knows that.
But then she doesn't do the thing. And it doesn't make any sense to me. I'd be like, the king is in danger. So let's go, just the two of us with no guards, to try and find him.
Yeah, no, make sense, right?
Yeah.
And even if that was the case, like in the note, they're like, oh, the priestesses are going to try to blah, blah. And I'm like, so you think Valak is just going to sit by and let that happen?
Exactly. And then like when she's there and it is Reika, and Reika's like, fine, I'll just go without you because I'm the only one who loves him or whatever. And she's like, okay, we'll go together. Like, oh God, it's just so easy. It's just... You're a child.
And Cam, what are you fucking doing? Like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna show up and fight these people off? Like, you can barely control your magic. Like, you're gonna be a liability.
Exactly. Go find someone who can actually help. Because Reika's not the one. Like, even if this note was valid, which, like, spoiler alert, it's not. She's not the one.
Right.
Why would you trust her?
No. But they go. And they ride for a full day and a night trying to find the Garm hunting party. But Reika's leading the way since Cam doesn't know the first thing about hunting. But once they get to a particular location, Reika tells Cam that it's time to die. And she attacks Cam with what sounds like a gardening hoe.
That's what I was picturing.
But she like claws her on the back and the hindquarters of the horse because they're still on horses. She like attacks her while she's on the horse. It just feels like it wasn't very well thought out. Like...
No, and it was such
like I have a big head and little arms.
Yeah, I'm wondering how well thought out this plan was. Also, it's such like a villain reveal because they're like talking about the Garm, and Reika says something like, "They'll find you when they smell the blood." Bam! Like it. It's just, girl, what?
Yeah, it was very overdramatic.
And she hits the horse more than she hits Cam. It was just terribly done. Like, why not do it?
Because they're both on horses.
Yeah.
She doesn't even get her off the fucking horse.
No,
what are we doing?
Stop for like a snack. Get off the horses. Like, and because this book gives us too much detail, they stopped earlier to water the horses. They stopped like 20 times and got off the horses. Why didn't she attack then?
Right. Perfect opportunity. So Cam takes off on her horse and ends up at the lake where Winter taught her how to ice skate with the cave. And her horse dies somehow. And then the Garm are there. Hi,
it's me.
And then we're back with Winter, and they've gotten word that the Garm have abruptly changed course. How? I don't know. But they're following them.
This was chaos, and this was where it was like every page would switch perspectives, but without a page break. And I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Yeah. It was very Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
So we're with Cam, we're back with Winter, and now we're back with Cam again. And we get this description of the Garm, finally. It's described as being as big as a horse with glowing red eyes, a shaggy tail, an earless head, and then, like, it doesn't have fur like it does on its tail. It has whiskers all along its body that it uses to sense.
Gross.
And, of course, razor-sharp teeth. Cool. It also drools blue slime and has toxic breath that traps its prey with freezing cold immobility.
Ew.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, ew.
It was wild.
So she runs from this beast and she ends up climbing a tree trying to get free, but of course the thing climbs trees too. And because we're in a Scooby-Doo episode, we're back to Winter, who's sprinting toward where they think the Garm is. They come upon a crevasse in the glacier, and there's a storm brewing. And because of this storm, Winter realizes that Cam must be the reason that the Garm have changed course. And that makes him frantic. So he spurs his horse to jump the crevasse. And he makes it, but the glacier crumbles underneath him, and the crevasse widens, leaving his men to find another way around. So it's just Winter.
By himself, of course. Did I lose you?
Back to Cam. Okay. No. I'm sorry. I lost my place in my notes. I was like, there's so many back to Cam. That I was just like, which one are we at?
That's how I felt every time. That's how I felt reading this whole chapter of like, where am I?
Yeah, well, and I just feel like you could have like kept some of those parts together so that it was a little less jarring.
Exactly, but nope.
So we're back with Cam again, who's still climbing for her life, but a strong gust of wind from her own storm makes her lose her footing, and that gives her an idea to use the wind to help her jump from tree to tree. Which she does until she doesn't and misses and falls to the ground after smacking a few branches along the way.
It's just like,
so now she's on the ground,
girl,
more broken and more injured. She knows she has to find some shelter from the Garm, who is quickly descending the tree after her. She makes her way to the ice cave behind the waterfall and wedges herself into it, hopefully out of the Garm's reach.
Something I did like in here is because it is so like Scooby-Doo and chaotic, but she has this external monologue where she's like, you fucking climb too? What kind of wolf climbs trees? Like, just pure like, what is happening? And I thought that was entertaining.
I loved that too, because at some point she's like, you've got to be joking.
Exactly. And I thought that was really great.
Yeah, I really liked the candor there. And it was so much needed like comic relief, because this was the 7th time her life has been in danger.
Ugh. And this is a time that I feel like it's the most dire, with the exception of the beginning. But yeah.
Yeah, truly. So she's wedged in this cave. The Garm is coming after her. And just before she finds out whether she's out of reach of the Garm, it twitches and dies. And when it's dragged out, she realizes Winter has saved her. She's so relieved that she starts crying, and Winter starts tending to her wounds as best he can. But the shock is setting in, and so Cam can barely speak when he asks her how she got so injured. She does manage to say, though, that Reika told her someone was trying to kill Winter, and Reika is the one who attacked her.
Reika's the problem. Can we finally admit it? Winter?
Yeah, brother. People have been telling you this all along.
I know. God.
And yet. So Winter asks her why she came to save him, but before she can tell him that she loves him, she realizes that there's another Garm behind him about to attack. Actually, 2 Garm, which is odd because they're supposed to be solitary killers.
I was like, but they're clearly not here.
They're clearly not. Okay, but also if they're solitary killer, I thought they were like basically the dogs of the frost giant. So
are they solitary?
I don't know. And that's the kind of thing of like, don't tell me that.
Yeah, because I didn't need to know that, because now you're just giving me more questions. That's like, then why are they all here? Or if they're just drawn to the ice heart, then like, wouldn't there be more than one anyway? And how many are there?
Is it the blood? Is it the ice heart? If you have the ice heart, why can't you just say heal?
Exactly.
And like end the whole thing.
Exactly.
So Winter tries to fight these 2 off, but he's eventually overpowered and knows that death is imminent. But just before the Garm can make the final killing blow, Cam throws a rock at the Garm to distract them. And then it comes after her, both of them. So Cam decides to try to channel lightning to her advantage, because remember, it's storming outside. So she does that and fries both of the remaining Garm and heals herself in the process, which is handy. But the use of her weather gifts has drained her to the point that she's like almost unconscious. And so she crawls back to Winter's unconscious form, lies on top of him, and succumbs to the darkness herself.
I get a little tired of her draining herself and passing out. Like, I get it, but if I understand the rules of the magic more, I think it would make me feel better. But instead it just feels like, again, let's kick her while she's down.
Yeah, because she passes out during other things that aren't using her magic that feel like they shouldn't make her pass out. And so now I don't know, like, is she strong or is she like effectively going up a flight of stairs and passing out?
Exactly. And like it kind of explains her illness from the beginning because she's being poisoned and now she's not. But like, we just don't know enough about it. And I'm just like, okay, of course she's unconscious again.
Right. And this is really unfortunate because, like, as we'll learn, finding both of them unconscious without a story to tell is bad for Cam.
Yeah.
So it's even more of the damsel in distressing. So something to look forward to.
Because that's where you're going to end, isn't it?
Yeah, that's where I'm going to end.
They are unconscious in the darkness. Cool.
And yeah, cool. So yeah, that's what we're going to end part 3. Part 4, we'll cover the rest of the book and our ratings. So stay tuned for that. So yeah, that's part 3 of The Winter King by C.L. Wilson. Let us know what you thought on the socials. You can find us on Facebook, Goodreads, TikTok, and Instagram at Spice Readers Pod. And if you like our content and want more, consider becoming a patron where we release Patreon exclusive episodes on our off weeks. So until next time, we'll see ya.
Bye.